Talk to me about MIT and the Media Lab. You have a role there now.
Yeah.
I was telling you, when I graduated in '93, I don't think there was a Media Lab, or it was
brand new,
maybe
if
brand
it
new.
existed. Yeah.
Also, the internet didn't really exist when I graduated, and like an email was just starting to get used.
Right.
It's weird to think of MIT without the internet, as in like, you know, but in a weird way, it's also not weird because there's so much pure science there. What's it like to be associated with the Media Lab, and what's your role there?
Yeah, I had this really interesting role, and the Media Lab is not the Media Lab that it was under Nicholas Negroponte, its inaugural director. Its new director, Joey Ito, is a very old friend of mine, and Joey is a polymath and also autodidact. He doesn't have an undergraduate degree. I don't know if he ever finished high school. And as someone who spent 7 years in a 4-year high school and then dropped out of 4 undergraduate programs without getting a degree, I feel really empathic with Joey. I feel like we're on the same path here. And he, you know, he's like an entrepreneur. He started the first major ISP in Japan. He is kind of a cultural gadfly. He was Timothy Leary's godson and arranged to have Leary's ashes shot into space. He is
successfully?
He's
wow.
an investor, early investor in LinkedIn and in Six to Start, which did movable type, and a bunch of other early success stories. And he's politically pretty radical. He was Creative Commons International Director. And when he arrived at the Media Lab, he brought with it this academically and politically radical vision of how the Media Lab would do business. So the Media Lab's motto used to be demo or die. And everyone had to build these demos out that the lab's corporate sponsors would come out and see, and some of them would be commercialized. That's where Lego Mindstorms came from, along with a lot of other super cool technologies like Scratch. And then his became develop or die, and then just became develop. And so it's all about people making stuff fast, iterating quickly, and cross-pollinating. And he's got, like, he and I have very different work styles. I'm a caveman, misanthrope, self-exiling dude who goes, like, when I'm not on the road, I speak to 4 humans a day, more or less. You know, my wife, my daughter, the barista, and the lifeguard at the pool, right?
And when you're on the road, you speak to 400.
And I speak to 400, yeah. But like I do get, like, as you can see, I'm very garrulous, and if I run into a friend, we can talk all afternoon. But that's one of the reasons that I arrange never to run into friends, so I can get work done. And so I'm like really head down kind of working guy. Joey can't live without continuous social interaction with other people. So he will give any student office hours, but only, I think it's 10 minutes. And so they have to basically write a TED talk of their problem. And he sits in his office all day and just gets the brightest kids in the world show up and present their ideas in the most intense way, and then he advises them really intensely. And he is in hog heaven. So he started this project there called the Forbidden Research Project, and its immediate catalyst was what happened to a mutual friend of ours, another entrepreneur and scholar and activist named Aaron Swartz. So a very bright young man. I met him when he was 12 years old, and he had been contributing to some of the core internet infrastructure, something called RSS. So one of the applications of XML, and it's now woven into things like podcasts.
Yeah, iTunes uses
that.
that.
Yeah. So he was helping to develop RSS, and he was coming to San Francisco for these meetings, these XML meetings, and his parents were understandably nervous about their young teenage son showing up. And my girlfriend at the time, this woman Lisa Ryan, was his great and good friend and mentor and mother figure. And so he would come and stay on her sofa, and we would squire him around town. And we'd introduce him to all the most interesting grown-ups, and he would amaze them with his interestingness. And he went on to help found a company called Reddit, that went and did very good things. And then when they were bought out by Condé Nast, he found that he didn't want to be in corporate harness, and he unceremoniously quit by refusing to show up for work. The way his boss found out that he was presenting at a conference in Berlin was when he went over his desk and couldn't find him, and then one of his freelancers filed a story about the presentation he was giving in Berlin that day. And then went on to do amazing scholarly things. So when he was in residence at Stanford, he scraped this huge corpus of law review articles. And what he was looking for was the relationship between funding of law departments by oil companies and law review articles that supported oil companies' arguments about their lack of culpability for climate change. And he wanted to see if there was a connection between these. And so he did...
The Pelican Brief or something, right?
Yeah, well, big data Pelican Brief.
Okay.
Right? Because he did it programmatically. He was a hacker, right? So he sucked down this huge corpus, and then he used early, text mining technology to do this groundbreaking work. And then he became a real advocate for open access. So in the US, court records are not copyrighted or copyrightable because government works, we don't have crown copyright in the US. Government works belong to the people. But the court documents, which are the law, right? The law isn't just what Congress writes, it's what the courts interpret. You can't know what the law is without being able to read the judgments and the proceedings. So the court documents are locked up in a system called PACER, which charges 10 cents a page to access it. It was a penny a page and it went up from there. Maybe it was 8 cents a page and went up from there, which is hilarious, right? How can data retrieval become more expensive as the years go on? But there was a loophole, which is that you could get pages through the library for free. And once you had them, you could do anything you wanted with them because they weren't copyrighted. And so some researchers created a tool called Recap, which would take pages from Pacer and put them in the public domain. And then you had a browser plugin, and if you ever requested a page from Pacer that was already in Recap, it would preferentially go to the free page. Okay. And if you requested a Pacer page that wasn't yet in Recap, it automatically put it there. It's really cool technology. And Aaron and his accomplices got millions of the most widely cited law, millions of pages of the most widely cited law out of Pacer and into Recap by going to libraries. $1 million worth of Pacer liberated and put into the hands of the people who it governed. And the FBI investigated him, and he made fools of them. And then he was at Harvard, down the road from MIT. And he would walk down the road to MIT and use their public network as he was allowed to do. And he would download documents from another scientific repository, JSTOR, which he was also allowed to do. But he violated their terms of service, which said that he could only access them one at a time by hand. He wrote a short computer program, a few lines, to download these articles. So that we don't know why he was downloading them. Some people think he was going to publish them online for free. Some people think he was going to do another thing like his law review research, but maybe about different kinds of climate change, maybe about climate science and the connection to oil company endowments. No one knows.
How old is he at this point?
He was in his mid-20s by then.
Okay.
And so what we do know is that the FBI got involved. MIT swore out a complaint against him. MIT, where they had this tradition of maverick intellectual curiosity and rule breaking, right? There's these things, the MIT hacks, which you must remember from your time there. People build full-scale fire engines on the roof of the dome. They, dye the fountains purple. They do all kinds of crazy, amazing things that are called MIT hacks, and they're celebrated. In fact, MIT has a book called Night Work that was published by MIT Press that's an oral history of MIT hacks. It's this incredible book. Yeah. And so Aaron, who was like in the MIT community and was down the road at Harvard and was doing this intellectually curious things, MIT hung him out to dry. Mm-hmm. They put, even after the people whose data repository Aaron had been scraping said that they had no interest in pursuing a claim against him, MIT kept it up. And Aaron was facing 13 felony counts, 35 years in prison for checking too many books out of the library at MIT. And in the end, he hanged himself after he was spent into penury. All the money he'd made from Reddit and every dollar he could borrow from his friends spent in a legal proceeding that was dragged out by the prosecutor until he hanged himself. And Aaron wasn't the only kid who'd ever been hung out to dry by MIT. It was part of an MIT tradition of hanging students out to dry when they broke the rules in ways that went beyond the pale. So MIT had this thing where we've got your back until you cross an invisible line that we'll never articulate, and then we'll throw you to the wolves. So a woman named Star Simpson had been at the MIT Media Lab in the wearable technology group making textiles that were smart. And she had designed a piece of jewelry that had LEDs in it. And she wore it to the airport to pick up a friend to Logan Airport. And she's darkly complected. She's an indigenous Hawaiian, or at least some of her ancestry is indigenous Hawaiian. She had short hair, and someone phoned in a report of an Arab-looking young man with a bomb around his neck. And she was thrown to the ground by a SWAT team that pointed machine guns at her. And the MIT, this was her work. This was her research that she was wearing. It was a little wearable computer. And the MIT counsel's office threw her to the dogs. She never finished her research. They before she'd even been released from her questioning, they'd already done a public statement condemning her. Bunny Huang is an amazing scholar and researcher who did his PhD in electrical engineering at MIT and is now celebrated as one of the world's premier hardware designers and hardware hackers, a great entrepreneur who's deeply involved with people from the West who want to do manufacturing in China, high quality electronic manufacturing in China. And one of the things he did as part of his research when he was there is he broke the copy protection, the user controls on the original Xbox so that he could install Linux on it. And again, the general counsel there hung him out to dry. So Joey showed up and he said, these are the kinds of researchers that we want at the Media Lab. And he started a project called the Forbidden Research Project. And he tapped Reid Hoffman, who's the founder of LinkedIn, one of the founders of PayPal, to endow a $250,000 cash prize for forbidden research. It's the largest cash prize being offered at MIT right now. And he asked me to help him with it. And so I became MIT's activist in residence. And I draw a small grant that pays for the work I do with the Electronic Frontier Foundation. We can talk about that too. I'm working with them to help sue the US government to overturn a really crappy law. And our client is Bunny Huang, the guy who was hung out to dry all those years ago by MIT. It's what goes around comes around. It's pretty amazing.
So this is kind of your effort in reversing this kind of injustices that MIT showed over the years and really changing the course and rewarding students for doing these maverick-like activities.
Yeah, and to make MIT accountable to its best nature, right? At its best, MIT has encouraged the kind of intellectual curiosity without boundaries that has produced the great success stories of its alumna. And what we want to do is help it be true to that principle, help it navigate that fine line. So one of the things MIT has done in the last couple of years is set up a law clinic for students whose research gets them into potential legal trouble, which also helps young lawyers learn to be better lawyers, better tech lawyers. Like what is tech law all about if not figuring out how to help nerds whose imaginations have gotten them into trouble with the law to navigate those very difficult waters.
Continue watching this fascinating conversation for free by clicking on the link below to visit our website, learn from the best minds in the world, and connect with a community of passionate people building the best versions of themselves. Just click on the link below, and I'll see you on the inside.